Three, two, one. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brett Keane from God TV Radio. I hope you've all had a blessed day. I've got TTOR with me, and I guess we'll talk about some different things. Did you and Will Kincaid ever work out your, discussion having to do with the age of the Earth?
Well, I did make a video response to him a few days ago saying that I would go ahead and start a video response series with him. And then at some point in the future, he and I would sit down and do a live stream with you as a moderator, so to speak. So I put out the first video in that response series today, actually.
All right. Sounds good.
I'm just waiting for him at this point.
Yeah, I love the shit out of Will Kincaid, but sometimes he can be a little slower in the draw, and it's gracious.
Right.
All right, so I put that link in the video. It should, people should be able to see it. Yep. All right, so recently you did a video. I don't want to talk too much about this bullshit and everything like that, but I noticed your video about Miramore the Red. I can't even pronounce it. Shit, what the hell does that even mean?
I think it's Miramore the Red. Yeah, I don't even know. I don't know what it means either, but that's whatever. It's his username.
It's interesting. He was going through my videos on your video, I noticed, and he actually thought I was the amazing atheist.
I know. I laughed so hard and I saw that. It's like, oh my goodness, did he really just assume that TJ Kirk is Brett Keane?
Yeah,
I'm sure TJ would be offended by that.
It looks like there's somebody in here called Draguda, but I can't put them up on the stream unless they. Hey, Draguda, if you can hear me, click stop cam. You don't have to get on webcam if you don't want to. But if you'd like to talk in voice, just simply disconnect your, hit stop cam at the bottom, and I'll be able to stream you. Yeah, hopefully they get that worked out.
Hopefully they have an avatar they can put in if they want.
So it's really odd to me, TTOR, because the guy called me a dumb fucking Jew and then calls me a Nazi, and I don't seem to think the relationship works too well between the two. So which am I?
I don't know. Just watching that little video of his was bizarre, to say the least. I mean, watching him call you a Nazi, saying that you're a NASA worshiper, which that one just threw me for a loop because I was thinking to myself, does Brett even think about NASA ever in his daily life? How can he worship something that he almost never thinks about?
I don't know if you've seen the comment that I wrote to you, but I wrote no fucks are given for NASA.
Yeah, I think I just saw that one, yeah. But the one where the part you pointed out in your video that I kind of glossed over in mine was basically him threatening to fight you over this issue.
I hear you there.
My God, did Antifa hijack his brain for a video or what? I mean, literally, it's like, oh, you disagree with me about X, Y, and Z. Therefore, you're a Nazi, and you're a bigot, and you're a troll, and you're a tard, and I want to fight you. It's like, apparently,
that's really odd. When I was a former atheist, I never once had a Christian make a video or say anything to me about wanting to whoop my ass whenever I was just a mean punk ass atheist. But I'll tell you what, I've had atheists and people of all kinds of different groups and communities just constantly wanting to whoop my ass. Do I have that kind of voice where it just comes off irritating or something?
I don't think it's that irritating, if at all.
What is the most ridiculous problem you've had with any community out there? Have you ever had somebody wanting to whoop your ass yet?
Well, one time when I was a YouTuber, there was a guy who made a comment on a video of mine that never got saw by anyone because YouTube, fortunately, worked like it was supposed to and flagged it as spam and allowed me to look at it before I deleted it. And basically, one guy threatened to hire a private investigator to find out where I live so that he could come punch me in the face.
Oof.
And I think the video... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, Draguda, you need to connect a microphone or a cam, something, or it won't allow me to stream you. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it works. All right, continue on. Sorry about that.
That's all right. So yeah, anyway, I think the video that this person made the comment on, I believe, was a video I did about the Dunning-Kruger effect, because something that a lot of evolutionist trolls have thrown my way in response to being a young Earth creationist is they say that I clearly exhibit the symptoms of the Dunning-Kruger effect, which essentially says that a person is really stupid, but they think that they're way smarter than they are, and they can't realize how stupid they are, and so therefore they think they're super intelligent. And I just find it hilarious because one, I don't display the symptoms of this effect, and two, they do.
What is this Kruger effect? The only Kruger I've ever heard is Freddy Krueger. What the hell are we talking about?
Well, let me actually look it up really quick because well, and what's funny about the Dunning-Kruger effect is the guy whose last name is Dunning that became part of the name, he actually tried to apply the Dunning-Kruger effect to Donald Trump supporters back in 2016 to explain why Trump has so much support. Basically, the message he was sending was that Trump supporters are so stupid that they don't realize he's blatantly lying about 90% of the things he says and that he's this horrible, evil man.
Oh, fuck. Unbelievable.
I know the amount of narcissism and arrogance and just sheer, I don't know what about that guy is just amazing.
Well, I don't know if you realize this, but I did give my link out of StreamYards and shit in the advertisement to all the turds who've been running their mouth on BitTube. It's my comments are all up there, even to Jackass. Apparently, he unblocked me recently, and I went over on his little Nazi video and said, "Hey, come on in, let's talk." I don't know why the fuck you'd think I was a CIA agent. What did the CIA have to do with the shape of the Earth?
I know. I just couldn't believe that one either because, as you know, that one bit shooter, Truth News of Jesus Christ, has consistently accused me of being a shill. But when that guy calls you a CIA shill, I just could not stop laughing. I just can't imagine you being on the payroll of the CIA, Brett.
No, fuck. I'd be doing a lot better in my life if I was getting paid that kind of money. That's for sure. Damn.
Speaking of shills, that's actually one of the things I would love to talk with Truth News of Jesus Christ about if he ever got the nerve to join us on a live stream. I would talk to him about what a shill means and what on earth makes him think that I am a shill. Because basically what a shill is someone who has a close relationship with an individual or a group of individuals or an organization, but they're not disclosing it to their audience when they're talking about it. And so I would love to sit down with Truth News of Jesus Christ sometime and ask him which individual or group of individuals or organization do I have this secret relationship with that I'm not disclosing to everyone. I would love to hear him talk about that. I would find it fascinating. But I think that's why he won't come on the live stream with us.
It's too bad. It's too bad. I notice people who are just trying to get attention or just cause an aggravation. They don't ever want to like face their, face the people they accuse of. Draguda says, "I'm on the front page of BitTube." I don't know what the fuck that even means, but yeah, they got to turn on it. Are you able to see people's stream box below, or is it only me that can see that?
Well, I can see. Oh, hold on. I clicked on the wrong thing. I can see myself and I can see Draguda in the private chat, but I don't see any other person popping up here.
Yeah, it says device is not connected. It says they have to either hook up a camera or a mic, or I'm not able to do it.
Apparently they don't have either one connected, which seems kind of weird.
That's too bad. I don't even know if they can fucking hear me. All right, well, I guess we can move past the trolls and the bullshit for a little bit. There's a little bit of echo. I don't know if that's from me or you. Let me see what's going on here. Let me turn down my speakers a little bit. See. I hope that's not Draguda that's causing the issue. Okay. All right. I got some interesting questions for you to make some good topics. Do you believe that the universe is as old as the world?
Yes.
So, I mean, how much rough time is that?
Well, as I explained in the video I just made to Will Kincaid, the Bible teaches that the universe and earth were both made on the first day of creation.
Hmm.
And since the days of creation were ordinary days like we experience today, according to God in Exodus 20:11, and since the genealogies and time spans that the Bible provides help us understand that the universe and earth are 6,000 years old, that's how old it is. But they were created at the same time, which is something that deep time believers and evolutionists and atheists do not agree with.
You believe that God's time in doing it may be different than how mankind perceives time?
The Bible does make it clear that God does not perceive time like we all do. I believe 2 Peter 3:8-9 is a pretty good illustration of that. But when he told Moses that he made everything in 6 days and rested on the seventh, he was talking about it in the context of telling the Israelites that they were to work 6 days and rest on the seventh. And so when he said that, he was asking them to do something that he himself did, which to me seems like a pretty reasonable demand from our Creator.
That's a good point. What was I going to say? uh, so, do you see it whenever you're looking at the genealogies and also the way Moses did this? I mean, this is definitely basically set in stone for you. There's no way it can be older.
Not based off the Bible, no. There's just no gaps in the information provided. Now, there are some people, on a side note, who think that the book of Genesis was not actually written by Moses because there are like 10 different points in the book of Genesis that are clearly transitional points between various portions of the book that are clearly the mark of an editor. And so people will use that to say, well, Moses didn't write Genesis. I, for one, disagree with that. I do agree that there's definitely editorial marks, but I think the editor was Moses. I think he had various documents that he put together into one document we call Genesis, and he made those transitional points to indicate where one account ends and the next one begins.
You know what I find unusual? And this is against the people who are actually arguing against you. I notice that atheists and some religious people out there, they believe in the Big Bang. They believe that the universe is actually expanding and going and all that. And as you know, I share some common views on that. But I don't know if they realize this or they looked deep into it, but scientists are claiming that the universe literally came into existence within a trillionth of a second. So why is it that they're so fucking upset that there's a 6-day period of God's creation? If God already did the universe in a second, what the hell 6 days?
Right. And that's something that, sometimes older creationists will bring up is that, well, why would God take 6 days to create everything? He could just do it all in 6 seconds or an instant because he's that powerful. And I would agree with that theology. The thing is, though, we have to go with what God told us that he did. And what he told us is 6 days because he was setting a model for us to emulate during our years. Work 6 days, rest the seventh, then work 6 more days, rest on the seventh. That was the pattern he wanted us to live by. And so that's the only reason I think why he took 6 days to make everything instead of a nanosecond.
Right. My wife, she once asked me, she said, and my wife shares the same name as your female friend. She said, why do you think, Brett, that God created the woman last? And I said, well, God was saving the best for last, I suppose. She always said I was a charmer, but what the hell, right? Oh, goodness. Do you, this is not really on the same topic as what you and Will are going at, but do you believe that Adam and Eve were, I've talked to people where some people actually believe they weren't physical beings before they ate from the tree, that they were actually like spirits and then got their body after they partook in this disobedience. What's your view on that?
That sounds like mumbo jumbo to me. I mean, I read Genesis, I read the first few chapters, and there's nothing in that text that makes me think that Adam and Eve were spirits before the fall or before, whichever point they're talking about where they became physical beings. I don't buy that, and I don't see it there.
What's your thoughts on how sentient or self-aware were they before eating from the tree? What's your opinion on that?
Well, they were sinless beings at that point. I mean, they hadn't committed any sins up to that point, and they were straight from the hand of God, so they were basically the peak of humanity as far as I'm concerned when it comes to intelligence and probably physical stature, and when it comes to stamina and everything else you can think about a human being. They were probably the apex of human capabilities because they came straight from God's hand. They don't have thousands of years of degradation and the law of entropy affecting their genome like we do. So they were probably superhuman by our standards.
You know, I've heard atheists say things like, if God is perfect, then why didn't he make mankind perfect then? This seems kind of weird. It seems to me when I read the Bible that God originally did make us perfect. The consequence of giving us choice and free will was the problem that we basically took advantage of and screwed ourselves in the process. Am I right?
Right. And also that's what they say about this world that we live in, is that they look at the world today and they erroneously assume or want to believe that God made the world this way, this junkyard of a world. And so what they fail to realize or don't want to realize is that little thing that happened 4,500 years ago called the flood of Noah, which completely destroyed our planet. I mean, you can tell it destroyed the planet because prior to the flood in Genesis, you could see that people were living on average to be well over 900 years old. But then shortly after the flood, that average age dramatically went down to like 100 or less within just a couple generations. So you have to know, based off of that alone, that something happened to the environment during the flood of Noah, primarily that it got wrecked in a really hardcore way. So when people look at the world around us today and they think that God made the world the way it currently is, they don't realize how much our world got wrecked by the flood of Noah.
You know, I don't know if you watched that Bill Nye versus Ken Ham debate. Did you get an opportunity to see that?
Many years ago, yeah, I saw the first one. There was actually a second one, but I never really watched that one.
It still gets to me to this day because Bill Nye is supposed to know all these scientists. He's not real. I don't really consider him all that of a scientist himself. He's more of a fucking TV host. But there was something he said where it felt like he was just deliberately and intentionally lying. He said, well, if the flood actually happened, then where did all the water go and all this? And I'm thinking to myself, it is commonly known in science that 400 miles beneath our feet, depending on if you believe in a flat earth, there is literally 6 to 8 times as much water that we have underground than we have in the sea itself. That means literally, and if the earth is 75% water and you have 8 amounts of water within the mantle and core of the fucking earth came up, well, there you go.
Right, and that's something I actually talked about many years ago in the early days of TTLR, is that there have been basically discoveries and more study of those discoveries, even back in like 2013, 2014, where they found giant reservoirs of water underneath the earth, and that there's enough water in these reservoirs that if they were above surface instead of below ground like they are now, the entire world would be flooded over and only the very tiny tips of the tallest mountains might stick out. Might.
I don't know if you knew this, and this might give you a big smile on your face, but they've actually found rivers of pure, clean water that actually run in between the ocean and these areas. You know what they call them?
What?
Halo. Halos, like angel. Halos.
Yeah.
Cute, huh?
Or like the video game.
There you go. No, I'm not talking about those dudes from the future that blow shit up, but I hear you. What was the film that you watched recently?
Right before I came on here, I was watching Rambo 2.
Oh, Rambo 2?
Yeah, I just felt like it.
Oh.
I rewatched Last Blood the other day, and then for some reason I just thought, I'll watch Rambo 2 before I come on here.
Rambo 2 is really, really good. It gives you kind of a shitty outlook of the government, though, how they did Rambo in that one, though. Oof.
Yeah, but it was interesting to see how they tried to literally leave him for dead, and he basically had such a psychotic rage and will to survive that he basically came back against their will.
Yeah, they seem like they were ready to end him on that.
Although
Well,
the new Rambo film, before we move on, that movie though set a whole new level of brutality. I don't know if you actually saw it.
Oh yeah, I seen it. It was extremely brutal. No spoiler alert, but I wish things would have went a little bit different with the girl.
Oh, the journalist.
No, the
niece.
the girl that was the whole plot of the movie kind of thing. I wish that the fate would have been a little bit different.
Yeah, but that is the typical Rambo theme, though, is that he loses someone he really cares about, and everyone involved with it dies.
Yeah.
So that stuck with the theme of the series there.
Yeah, but Rambo's kind of out of family members and shit. That was like the one left and stuff. But he's got the maid, I suppose.
Yeah.
What the hell? Have you ever seen Artificial Intelligence?
Wait, are we talking about in general, or are we talking about a movie or a show?
A movie called Artificial Intelligence. I was going to lead it into a little bit of an interesting discussion with you.
Was it Johnny Depp in that?
No, it's got the little boy from the movie The Sixth Sense plays in it.
Is that the movie where the guy basically becomes like a digital intelligence after being human?
No, it's a movie about these parents who are in the future who are not able to have children, and they did have one son, but he ends up in a coma for the rest of his life. And this robotic company says they'll make them a child and all that. So it's really interesting them dealing with this. And for some reason, the child that's in the coma wakes up after a couple months from the coma, and they never thought that would happen. And they start kind of, how do I put it? They pay attention to their real kid and treat the robot like it's a robot. They don't love it anymore, but it can seem to respond to love. It's a hardcore story, man. But the point is that I was when I was watching it, I was wondering, because it seems like mankind keeps advancing in technology. If mankind were actually able to create life, obviously there'd have to be a mind behind it. Do you believe that that life would also have a soul? That God would permit a soul in anything that we would create called life? Interesting topic. What do you think?
That's difficult to say. It's not something that I can really speak with any certainty on, but if you're able to create life from non-life, then obviously there was intelligence involved, and that kind of defeats the whole basically narrative behind the atheist evolutionist community that exists today. They want just to believe that there's no intelligence involved in any of this stuff.
Well, I don't believe that science will ever get to a point where they can create a living being from nothing. They'd have to take scripts from the genetics of the person and all that in order to do it. I believe that they can genetically splice. No shit on that.
Right.
And also, I believe that it's impossible to create life without there being an intelligence putting it together. But they would obviously essentially be using the properties that God already created to make it. It's kind of like using computer parts that have already been done.
Right.
The point is, though, if mankind did this, though, they used the parts and did this, would God permit a soul for a life like that?
I have no idea at all, to be honest. Sorry, Brad. I'll have to think about it more. Maybe one day, in like 10 years, I'll have an answer.
It's all good. Did you see the March for Life with Donald Trump?
No, but I heard that he was the first U.S. president to be involved with that and that he spoke at it. So later I'm going to find his speech because I assume it's up on the White House channel on BitChute, and I'm going to watch it.
It's about 15, 20 minutes long. I watched it. It was a really, really beautiful, articulate speech. He actually did very fantastic. He must have been reading off a prompter or actually really thought it out before saying it. It was really good. A lot of stuff about God in it. You're going to enjoy that. What's your what is your thoughts? I notice that some people they put like if certain things happen, then they're willing to allow abortion. How are you on that? Do you is it like hell no all the way down the line, or is there, oh, if the woman had this happen to her, then yeah, let's go ahead and kill the child for nothing type of deal? What's your view on it?
Yeah, if the child's alive, you don't kill it ever. Now, if there's a miscarriage that happens and you need to use the technique of abortion to get the corpse out, that's completely different. You're not murdering the child at that point. But that's not what people use the abortion techniques for. They use it to murder the children. So
Right.
I'm definitely on the abolitionist side of that issue, which is no abortion ever.
I was absolutely shocked to hear the same thing you just told me. They said he was the first president that ever went to any of these pro life deals and put forth his feelings and ideas on it. How is that possible? With all the Republicans we've had in the past, why is it that he's the only president that's ever got up there and said anything about this?
Well, best I can think of is most of the previous administrations were not completely outside the establishment like Trump is. I mean, Trump really was the outsider going into 2016, and they really, really do not like him because he literally is not one of them. He's not part of their secret clubs and their secret societies where they worship Satan. He doesn't take any of their blood money. He's not involved with them in any of those ways at all. So he's literally an outsider to them, and that's why they're working so hard to basically destroy his life. And so I think most of the previous administrations were part of this establishment. And it's not really surprising to me that the first U.S. president to actually participate in the March for Life would be someone who's not part of the political establishment.
Hmm. That's fair enough. All right, I got another unusual question for you. I don't know if I know that you're always busy making your own videos. You're living your own life. You can't watch every single fucking slop
Right.
I throw out there on the net. But I've got a video out there where I talk about the moon landing. Did you get an opportunity to see this?
Unfortunately, no. It was on my list of things to do, but that list is always growing.
It's all good. It's fine. Well, one of the points that I made was even though I seem to be having a lot of jackoffs I'm dealing with whenever it comes to the flat earth, there's a lot of things I do agree with some of these conspiracy theorists with. Like, I have a trouble trusting the government. I
Right.
also believe that they fudge the facts on evolution and other extremely important issues so they can sell books and be on the cover of magazines. Being that, I can understand why people would question. What I can't understand is the aggressive fucking behavior behind it. It seems like it's counterproductive to what they're trying to sell. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like I said earlier, they behave like the far leftists. They behave like Antifa when someone dissents from their worldview. And I don't understand how they think that behaving the way they do is going to attract people to what they're saying.
So here it is out here. I'm going to do kind of the devil's advocate thing for a little bit. Do you think it's possible that there might be some truth to what these people are saying? Do you think that maybe all the imagery and all the videos, all the millions of fucking videos that we see and all the satellite footage, all the scientists, that they could actually be lying to us, that they're bullshitting us, that we actually have an ice ring and a fucking giant bubble over our planet and it's flat?
Well, I mean, anything's possible, but I would put their possibility really low. But if they could show videos of people actually faking stuff like that in such a realistic manner, if they could actually show that how it's done and actually replicate it themselves, I would be more open to listening to the possibility of the government and NASA and all the video footage we have of outer space is all a crock. If they could show how it's done and do it themselves to prove that that's how it's done, then I'd be more open to listening to that kind of idea.
Will, where the fuck have you been, you asshole?
Fucking asleep. For some reason, I thought it was 9 your time or whatever. I don't know what the fuck happened. I'm here though.
It's 30 minutes late, dude. I ended up doing 10 minutes fucking talking to myself and shit. Best conversation I ever had, but still. The fuck?
I know. I'm officially this show's pimp monk.
Oh, jeez. That's rough. Well, we were just talking about something, and I asked Mr. TTOR a question. I guess I'll throw it at you as well, see where you're at. See, I knew earlier when I was talking to you, I could see your fucking eyes all drooping over, and you're like, "I'm fine, dude. I'm fucking high on coke." No, I'm kidding. He didn't say that. He said he was fine. But here's my question for you. Ain't that terrible? Yeah. Well, as you know, I told TTR this, I have disturbing issues with my trust for the government. I think I have damn good reason for it. I have issues with fucking science. Obviously, I've questioned evolution for the longest ass time. You've heard it for yourself. Yeah. Now, being that, I feel like I share some amount of common ground with these flat earthers who've been trying to fucking bend me over the couch and bang me in the ass with a banana. Right. That's the thing I find in common. Why do you think it is? Do you think it's possible that there could be any fucking truth to what they're saying? I'm really serious. Do you think that maybe it's flat and all the scientists are fucking lying?
No, I don't think there's that. But I mean, all the justifications for that they use leading up to that sound reasonable. But I think that that's by design because basically it's part of the argumentation is to set up a false dichotomy of, well, the government lies, so therefore flat earth. So it almost makes sense if you're arguing from like the perspective of an emotional argument because because the government does lie. So it's like, but that's a false equivocation. So
all right. Well, we won't spend too much more time on Pancake Planet or anything, but I got to ask you something because I've already kind of thrown TTOR in a question on this, and I don't want to take too much time talking about something that you guys already plan on doing a series on anyway, unless you guys are okay with that. But my question for you is, why do you think that the universe and the planet is older? What is your reasoning behind that?
Well, I'm the one who thinks that it's older than TTOR, but I don't know
how much older do you think it is? Give me a roundabout number, please.
Well, I assume the universe is about 15 billion years old, but that's
Let's start with that. 15 billion years old. Why do you think that, though? We can't even hardly see outside of our own fucking galaxy and solar system with a telescope. Why do you think this for?
Cosmic background radiation from the Big Bang. I don't actually see an issue with it's not paradoxical to say that the Big Bang could have happened with God. So, I mean, when we're talking about how we get those ages, there's a lot of math, there's a lot of science, there's a lot of ifs and whats and what have yous. But right. But the general idea is that the cosmic background radiation from the Big Bang basically acts like a mirror that lets us look back in time. That's the short answer. But again, I don't have an issue.
Let me tell you both my thoughts on it real quick, and I'm going to be straight up honest with you both. The reason why I believe the universe is as old as it is because I got a little bit of faith in the scientists. But right. As I will admit repeatedly, they have fucked me over nonstop. There's disagreements there. I am not a scientist. I have never been out in space. I will probably never see it. I do not know how they even come to the fucking conclusion the universe is that old. That's why I'm asking you, Will, how do you know that shit's 15 fucking billion, trillion, or gazillion years old?
Well, right. Well, that's what I'm saying is that, like, well, first of all, I'm half awake right now to try and explain the fucking math and all the.
So you got something to drink? Something hot, tea, coffee? I'm still wondering where my fucking coffee is.
Nah, I was gonna get myself a cigarette, but I wanted to hop right in here because I realized I fucked up. I go, oh shit, and so I was like, I just ran right downstairs and set up all my garbo. So, but. Yeah, I mean, I did do the first.
Well, hey, wait a minute. Well, go put some water on your face. Get you something to drink real quick, and All right, and then we'll talk about some shit if you guys actually feel like going into a little bit. I know it's better to do it by video because you guys will be able to research and study up on the topic and go to town. But if you guys want to talk about it, we can. It's up to you.
I would prefer to stick with the video responses for now, and then having a live stream that's more focused around talking about the differences in general will be a better thing later.
Yeah,
All right, sounds great.
That makes the most sense anyway. Although I didn't really have like a jumping off point, so maybe this is because you said your last video you were just like challenge accepted. I was like, okay, I guess I'll start. So I guess this is me starting. So now you've got something to work with.
Well, I already made my first video. I uploaded it several hours ago. Yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay, I haven't gotten a chance.
Yeah, just go to my BitTubers later and you'll see it.
Oh, it's okay, cool.
It's a 23-minute video, so you'll want some popcorn.
All right, that's fine. Yeah, no.
All right, we'll get you some water in your face, and we'll work into a different topic and shit. I don't want to fucking just blow the wad all right here. You guys got a beautiful, brilliant series coming along. I'll let you guys handle it that way. Sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good. I'll be right back, Brett.
All right, get yourself woke up there.
We'll still be here when you get back, I think. Right as he turns off his camera, I think.
It's all good. Let me see if I can. Yeah, that'll work. It shows all the names on the screen and shit. All right, I guess we could. Okay, whenever it comes to the concept of the soul, how do you perceive it? It seems to me, I'll throw out my opinion, and you can correct me or say whatever's on your mind on this. But it seems like whenever it says God breathed life in the man, it almost seems like the soul is the very embodiment of the person. But of course, there's some kind of detachment through death when the physical body's removed. How do you, when you think of soul or your own soul, obviously atheists see it as it's some kind of little glowy thing that's sitting in a fucking box somewhere hidden in your body. What's your view? Sorry.
Well, when I think of the soul or the spirit or whatever you want to call it, I think of the you that is separate from your body. Because when you're having thoughts, you can analyze your own thoughts. Like, why am I thinking that? Why am I even having these thoughts? There is a you that is separate from the rest of your body that you can basically analyze yourself. And when you die, this you will still exist.
When Jesus ascended to the right hand of his Father, as the Bible speaks of, do you believe that the physical body was taken with him?
Well, he had a resurrected body, so I would say the resurrected body went with him. Mm-hmm. But Jesus did make it clear that his resurrected body was not quite the same as his body that died on the cross.
Why do you think it was when I'm reading the New Testament and I read about whenever he resurrected, the tombs removed and all this, it seemed like a lot of people weren't able to recognize him. What do you think was going on during this process?
I don't know. It could just be they were spiritually blind and it affected them physically as far as their recognition of him. Or it could be that his body actually did look a little bit different than it did before his death on the cross. And so they didn't instantly recognize him.
It seemed like his mother didn't seem to know until she looked into his eyes. Right. It was like she had to look into his eyes and then she knew. It's really odd.
And Paul talks about the bodies that we get after the resurrection happens for all believers, because we basically lose these bodies we have and we get resurrection bodies, which are basically bigger, stronger, faster, better thinking as far as processing power of the old noggin and not getting sick and not getting hurt and all that stuff. That's basically what a resurrected body is for us who are part of the kingdom when Christ comes back to establish it. But as far as his body goes, he probably got something similar as far as an improved body over the one he had in the first century.
Well, TTOR, can you do me a favor? And I'm sure Will will be back in a moment. Can you plug your channel, your BitChute, your BitTube, all that kind of stuff? Tell people a little bit about what they're going to find over there and yada, yada, yada. I will be right back in a moment. I hope that Will doesn't leave you hanging for too long, but you're an extremely intelligent person. I'm sure you can hold the thing for a minute or two, right?
Yeah, I can do it. I can
You go ahead
hold
and
the
put
fort.
her on the screen.
All right, so if you're watching this and you don't know who I am yet, Justin Derby, I run a online video apologetics ministry called Truth, the Objective Reality. Primary places you can find me are, one, I have a channel on the YouTube alternative called BitChute. I have over 700 subscribers there. I'm actually a mid-level channel on this site, which is growing fairly fast over recent months and actually has a couple million users now. So if you go to BitChute and you look up my channel name, TTOR, you should be able to find me even in their currently broken search engine. But if you use a search engine like Josh Who, then you'll find me easier. You can also find my videos on bittubers.com, which here in a few days will be called bittube.tv. And all you have to do is look up TTOR, and you should be able to find my profile, and you should be able to find my videos. And a third platform that I upload videos to is called OojTube, which is run by the Utah Gun Exchange, which is a pro Second Amendment organization. I use that site as a backup, but I have a few subs there, and my videos get some okay views over there as well. So if BitTubers or BitChute don't appeal to you and you want a site that's a little bit more like old YouTube, OojTube would be a good place to find my content. And so you can just go to OojTube and look up TTOR, and you should be able to find my channel or my videos. As far as places you can follow me that don't involve video sharing, you can follow me and find me on Gab and Minds and Parlay, and you can also find me on USA.life and Dissenter, and you can find me on Censor Wars, and that's pretty much the main places to find me. Well, and BitTubers is not just a YouTube alternative, it's also a general social media platform, so occasionally I may make updates on that site, and you can follow those there as well. But yeah, those are the places you can find me, and hopefully I'll see some of you there. Hopefully. But yeah, until Brett and Will get back, what can we talk about? What can we talk about? Well, as I sit here looking at news and politics, because I do make videos regarding news and politics and tech censorship, and then I deal with Christian apologetics videos where I'm primarily dealing with old versus young earth creationism, creation versus evolution, and apologetics in general. What I see is an authoritarian spirit, especially in the creation versus evolution, old earth versus young earth creationism controversies. There's an authoritarian spirit that I see in those controversies that I'm also seeing in the news and politics area of life. And so, as I observe reality, especially over the last year or so, I see the two worlds coming together because the same authoritarian spirit is behind both. And look, everyone's back with me. I guess I can be quiet now.
Yeah, you're doing good, man. Just rocking and rolling it. You ought to get your own radio station, man. Damn, you ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, that's right.
Will, you said something about you were wanting to discuss transhumanism or some shit like that, and we had a couple other topics I think TTOR might also enjoy. Before we get into it, remind me what the hell the transhumanism thing is. You'll probably get me in the first two sentences.
Well, it's this whole thing about it's a lot. There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to transhumanism because it sort of becomes now we've got a new biological component of transhumanism that transcends just minor physical alterations to the human body, or putting a machine in your body because this new. I guess technically they're called xenobots. Now they're robots, but they're not robots within the traditional sense. What they are is they are artificially created. They're pre-existing cellular bodies that are artificially taken apart and reconstructed into new organisms that have DNA that is completely unique and has never existed on the planet. They're called xenobots. They used frog tissue, they used frog skin cells and heart cells, and they basically programmed the cells to act in a predictable manner using a supercomputer to generate an algorithm that creates hundreds of thousands of different configurations of cellular sequences. That basically they wanted to program cells that swim in a straight line, and they've done that, and that's the first step.
So hold on, they're making some kind of technological machines that they are using to put in human bodies.
Well, that's the thing, is that it's a machine in the sense that is programmed, the DNA is programmed to do a certain thing, but it's not made of inorganic material. So
it's a biological.
It's a biological machine. Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
So this is like a cyborg or a synth?
It's more like a synth than a cyborg, where it's all made of. It's all the template is already an existing cell. Then they reprogram the DNA, and then they get this, because cells have a tendency to want to stick together anyway, on the micro level. So it's not really that hard. They use electrolysis to basically convince the cells that they should be sticking together, and then they do.
Now wait a second. If they have some kind of understanding of how to do such a fucking thing, then why haven't we cured AIDS and cancer and this new Chinese bullshit?
That's what they're trying to do. This literally just happened like a week or two ago.
A week or two ago. Did they try it? Is it in human trials, or is it just a fucking frog?
Well, it is a frog and it isn't a frog. They used frog DNA as the basis. I mean, we're getting into Jurassic Park levels of fucked up right now. But they used it as a basis, and then they reprogrammed the DNA so that it is genetically it's so weird to try and explain. Technically, the organism has never existed because the DNA is unique now, and it's programmed to do just one specific thing. And like, for example, your brain is made up of tons of different cells that on their own don't really do anything special, but when you put them together, they form a brain that's capable of thinking and reasoning and all these other things. So
okay, so there's an important question here. I think we're getting where you're going with this.
Yeah.
How do they know they can do this without the machine or nanobots or whatever the fuck they're using? How do they know it's not going to turn on the human body down the road? Like it sees the body as the enemy and starts fighting against it.
What they'll do is they'll actually use your own cells as the basis, so the chance of rejection is much lower. So the body won't recognize, not like an inorganic material, because that was the problem that they were having with nanobots, is that in the beginning it was like, well, the chance of rejection in your body, your immune system not recognizing this is something that should be in your body and recognizing it as a foreign object that it is. That was an issue. But if you actually create a machine that's organic, that's actually made of your own tissue, then the chance of rejection is much lower.
Well, wait a minute. How can they do this unless they were to use some kind of cloning or harvesting?
What they do is they'll harvest your own cells to make the actual xenobots that will then go in and they'll do specific things. The hope is, they're not there yet, because like I said, this literally just happened like a week or two ago. The hope is that they'll go into your body, and these xenobots will be able to they'll be programmed to seek out cancerous cells, or like, let's say you have FAR syndrome, which basically is what FAR syndrome is your body produces an excess of calcium and it builds up in deposits. And a lot of times with FARs, it ends up being a calcification in your brain, usually somewhere that they can't operate, like in your basal ganglia, which is it's near the center of your brain, and it's sort of brain stem adjacent. So it would get rid of that, or it would get rid of cancer, or if you have plaque build up in your arteries, instead of needing a stent and having the intravenous ablation and the whole fucking thing. These little robots that are made of your own cells will go in and pull the shit out, and then
Yeah, but let's say they take the shit out of our bodies, and Mr. TTR decided he wanted to be a synth or whatever, and they have this shit put into his body. Doesn't our body literally go through massive changes every single day of our life? Our cells are constantly dividing and dying, creating new formations of it. I mean, if that's the case, how the fuck is the nanobot? The nanobot is going to be originated from the point where it was different cells. How is it going to combine with that?
Well, it doesn't necessarily combine with you. It's sort of just in there. It is you and it isn't you, because it doesn't even have the same exact DNA, but the exterior template is recognized by your immune system. It's something that is part of you, even though it isn't. So, and these cells, when they did this study, they were like, well, what would happen if we cut one of these fucking things basically in half? We're not going to separate them to different ends of the petri dish, but we just take a knife and we slice it and we create a margin of space in between it that's nominal. And what it does is they recombine. It heals itself. The cells themselves live from anywhere from, I think it's 7 to 12 days, and then they die. But in the future, they'll be able to replicate on their own, and they'll stay in your system, basically seeking and destroying. Could be viruses, like if you were, for example, HIV positive, or you had some other autoimmune disease that would attack the defective cells, take them out and replace them, even if your body continued to produce them, because it's so widespread. But
this makes me nervous. Well, anytime I've ever heard of a plot story like this, it ends in zombie apocalypse.
Well, yeah, that's the fear. I mean, and then the other thing is that because it's not technically human or whatever the genetic template is, because they are moving up to rats for testing, because that's the next phase. It's not technically an animal that we recognize, and it's not technically human. So what is it? Does it have rights? Which I think is fucking preposterous that anyone would suggest that. But that is the case.
But it's not alive, so why would this?
Well, it is alive because it exhibits all the characteristics of life, but it isn't alive in the traditional sense, because it is technically a completely new, genetically engineered and programmed organism to do a specific task.
Well, if they're going to have some kind of moral argument about some little thing inside of you that doesn't even have eyeballs or a mouth or anything like this, then how the fuck are they able to hold their bullshit on abortion then? I mean, if they're going to cry and whine about fucking nanobots, why don't they care about fetuses?
Well, there's the problem, though. That's a level of cognitive dissonance that I'm not sure I necessarily understand. I mean, even when I was an atheiist, I was a pro-life atheist. So, I mean, I can't make the argument one way or the other.
How did you do that? Before we continue on in the nanobots, how did you, when you were a former atheist, hold to the pro-life thing? Didn't you just see it as nothing but fucking slime that's just an evolved slug? What?
Well, no, because even in those days, I recognize that life, especially human life, has an inherent value. And maybe it's because I'm biased because I'm a human, but I'm on team fucking people here. And I mean, like, I would say if we're gonna split hairs, a human is a human is a human. I can't be bothered to.
Yeah, but well, I appreciate that, and I totally respect what you're saying. But how can an atheist even see a full-blown adult as inherently valuable? Do you understand what I'm asking you?
Because they get so caught up in. Okay, so over the summer, I went to a women's march, a local women's march. It wasn't the women's march, but it was a women's march. And we started to have these conversations with people, because I've got a friend who her ex-husband was going to force her to have an abortion. So we went and took that and said, okay, we're going to run with this argument. She even brought her kid to the rally, and you should see some of the reactions in the fucking faces of these people. when you tell them that, because shouldn't I have the right not to get an abortion? Does my father, does the father of my child have, the right to say, fuck you, kill the little bastard? But at any rate, we went, and a lot of what you hear is, well, my body, my choice. And it's like, if you think about it for a second, it's like, well, wait a second, it's not entirely your body. That at what point, where does mom end and fetus begin? And it's pretty obvious. It's the fucking umbilical cord, because that's what the son of a bitch is attached to. I'm sorry, I gotta follow my TTOR. We've never interacted like this before. But
TTOR has listened to me for so long, and he hasn't puked. I think he might be able to handle you.
I watch 6 Hexenhammer 666 videos, so I'm inoculated. I tend to listen more than focus on curse words.
Right.
Before we continue, I do have to ask TTOR, because I don't want to make him feel like he's fucking just sitting there listening to our bullshit. TTOR, I've been noticing you've been making video after video, slapping this fucker around. Why is this particular individual situation so important to you that you feel like you got to beat on him like that?
Wait, are we talking about Sticks?
Yeah, Cockhammer, or whatever the hell his name is.
Not how
Why
you say
him?
it.
Why not some other fucking drip? Why is he so important? He needs a couple videos.
Well, he is the biggest user on BitChute with 75,000 subs, which is not insignificant even by YouTube standards. And he just makes some things that I feel like need to be responded to. And so it's a good thing to do. Someone who's well known happens to be talking about some things that I'm interested in, and so making a response to that just seems appropriate.
That absolutely makes sense, motherfuckers. He's inspiring and influencing people out there, and he's saying shit that you feel like you can talk about. I get you there. I couldn't find any other.
The occult Jesus video he did just was begging for a response, because that's so blatantly false. I can't believe he actually said it as a video.
What was his claim again?
That Jesus was an occultist who borrowed from elements of the Eastern religions around the Roman Empire to create his religion.
That's weird, because I watched a documentary a while back called the Young Years of Jesus. I don't know if you ever seen any of these type of videos. Mm-hmm. As you know, in the Bible, there seems to be where you hear about him for a little while when he's young, and then many years go by where you don't hear about him, and then he appears on the scene again. There's a thing called like the secret years of Jesus and all that, and a documentation where it claims that other groups out there and other religions actually, how do I put this? They claim that they may have actually seen Jesus back then, and that he talked to them about their views and ideologies and all that. It's interesting, something to think about. Apparently Hindus, Buddhists, what the hell, I think maybe Zoroastrians, or was that? No, that was Bohemian Rhapsody. But yeah, he supposedly talked to all types of different groups.
Problem is I don't think he really ever left Israel, other than when he was a child and they had to hide from the Herods.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, he lived in an area. I mean, you got the big ass town.
Yeah, because it does say before that gap happens that they went to Nazareth after they moved back from Egypt, and then it picks up where he's 30 years old. But there's no story about him leaving Israel, leaving Jerusalem to go to these other places and talk to these other people.
Jerusalem was a huge marketing place, though. It had lots and lots of travelers and foreigners coming in and out of there. Seems like he would have interacted with a lot of people.
Maybe. It's possible, but like I said, we don't really have any evidence for it. I mean, if we had first century sources that talk about this, then it would be worth listening to. But if we don't have those, well...
Well, you might want to check it out, TTOR. This is one of them type of things that you can really stick your teeth into, really chew on. The secret years of Jesus. What was going on between that time? Now, Will, what were you getting into? We were talking about nanobots and turning people into GoBots and shit. What else we got here? What else is on the list?
Well, the other component of transhumanism is the beginning of transhumanism, which is human body modification. There's a lot of really famous ones. There's the one guy who got all the body modifications to look like a reptile. He got himself cosmetically altered the tongue and his ears. He got his
I've seen that
nose.
guy.
Yeah, that's the face.
I've seen motherfuckers make themselves look like snakes, alligators. I recently watched a YouTube video where a guy fucked his face up so much that he looks like a damn night elf.
Yeah, I
Out in
know.
World of Warcraft.
And that's irreversible. I think that it's a larger component of a psychological